So, let's talk about dual pricing in Thailand. This topic has come up a number of times among some of my friends and a number of new co-workers and number of people who just want to find out a little bit about what this all means and um, how it affects them, but also my thoughts on it. Now, I explained this, the dual pricing in Thailand before to, or basically anytime someone asks, but they have also said, hey, you're not really explaining your thoughts or your views on this. And so let me kind of give you my take on it. I think the best way is to basically explain um, how it affected me on my very first trip and my very first year, and then where we are at today. I've experienced it in a number of different ways. And so let me explain that to you, and that'll kind of give you an understanding of my point of view. I try not to get too much into this because it's one of those touchy subjects, right? It's for those of us who are currently experiencing it, new to experience it, or old veterans. There's so many strong beliefs on it. Some people have very strong beliefs, some people don't, but there's a lot of people who have opinions on the situation. So let me tell you my experience from it, from the very first trip. So very first trip in Thailand was 2007. I went out there with a friend, and the goal was to see everything, do everything, go everywhere. And so we did it all. Now, of course, by doing everything, we went to a lot of national parks and not a lot of national monuments, temples, events, locations, resorts, preserves, different entertainment venues, outdoor zoos and parks and other things. And they would have at a number of locations, not all locations, but some of the locations will have dual pricing, which is the price that a Thai national would pay, and then whatever the higher amount for the foreigner would pay. Now, when we went out there the first time, I didn't know much of anything, and so for a good deal part of the trip, I didn't even realize that we were being paid or charged a higher amount to enter the park or enter the zoo because we were foreigners. Now, later on in the trip, I did realize that, and to tell you the truth, at the during that first trip in the first year, probably, so which was the first three trips, it didn't even dawn on me to even think twice about it. I was there on vacation, and so I went ahead and paid the amount. I was excited about Thailand. I was enjoying my trip, and so it didn't really dawn on me, and I didn't put much thought into the situation. Now, let me tell you about the pricing, how that works. And so, with the dual pricing, there's times where we went to parks, zoos, and other entertainment venues, whether they're government run, public run, privately run, independently owned, foreign owned, whatever the situation was or is. There was times where we went to places and the cost for ties, some places were zero, and foreigners will have to pay a small amount like 20 or 30 baht. Well, it's 30 baht to the US dollars. So you're talking, 60 cents to a dollar sometimes to go to, to get inside, right? And, that's a nominal amount to pay. Now, there are times where they charge both the foreigner and both the Thai. And I remember seeing signs later on where the Thai national, the Thai individual had to pay like 20 or 30 baht. It's usually pretty inexpensive for Thais because, the majority of Thais, the per capita income, the monthly income is low, right? And so they would charge like 20, 30, 40 baht at most, maybe sometimes 50 baht in some places for a Thai national. And then for the foreigner, a lot of times it would be sometimes double. It'd be Thais would pay 20 or 30 baht, and the foreigner would pay 40 or 50 baht. Well, it's only 30 baht to the dollar, right? So we're still not talking very much money. Now there are times where we went into places where they were charging 20 to 50 baht, sometimes 100 baht for the Thai individual, and then the foreigner was paying anywhere from double. You know, if it was 100 for the Thais, then maybe 200 for the foreigner. And then there was a couple locations where I believe the cost was anywhere from 2 to 500 baht. 500 baht is about $15, and so there was times where the Thais were charged considerably less, where we were paying as much as 3 to 5 times more, being a foreigner. Now, it didn't really dawn on me much the first trip in 2007, and I took 3 trips altogether the first year, and it didn't really dawn on me much. And then as I started coming to Thailand regularly in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth year, it wasn't much of an emphasis for me to even consider or think about it too much. Right before I took my first full time job in Thailand, there was a couple situations where I was at a location, and I was basically no itinerary. I was just bouncing around the countryside in North Thailand between Chiang Mai, Khon Kaen, and Udon Thani. And anytime I came across something, I took a look, right. And I remember going to this turtle farm, and I did have to pay a little bit more to go into the turtle farm, turtle sanctuary, and I didn't have a problem with that. But then a few kilometers down the road, they had this. I couldn't read the Thai sign, but basically it was a Thai park, right, national park, and there was really nothing to see, nothing to do there, and they wanted 500 baht to go into this random park, and I didn't want to go up the hillside and do trekking. It was a hot day, it was a dusty day, I was already kind of tired, and they wanted 500 baht for foreigners. And I can remember if they I don't I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe there was no fee at all for nationals to go in, Thai nationals to be allowed into the park, but they wanted 500 baht for foreigners. And I wasn't that excited to go in there just to walk around and get additional exercise by climbing these hillsides and mountainside, and so I went ahead and didn't pay. Now, typically, my rule of thumb for me is if there's something I don't want to see and I'm not with a group, then if it's not that exciting, I just won't pay for it. If it's a nominal amount and it's worth a look, I'll pay it without thinking twice. Now, some people are on both spectrums, right? I have individuals and friends, whether they're new to Thailand or they're hardened veterans, they absolutely will not go to a place that charges more for foreigners, and so that's a no go. Then I got those individuals on the other side where they do everything, see everything, they don't care about the dual pricing, they will pay it 100% of the time. I think for myself, I kind of fall in the middle of that, where um, most times, I think every single time I've been with a group, except for one time, I'm sorry. There was one time we were at a temple in Khon Kaen, and I was tired, and the staircase going up to the very top of the Buddha was so far away. And it was kind of pricey. I'm not 500 baht pricey, but I think it was like 200 baht pricey. And I thought, man, for 200, 300 baht, I don't really want to go all the way up to the top of the Buddha temple. And so I didn't pay for it. I stayed at the very bottom where all the tour buses were, and I sat down and had some ice cream and watched some videos, and the rest of the people in my group went up. And that was kind of an isolated situation. But most times when I'm with a group, I'll just go ahead and pay for it. Unless, of course, I'm by myself and the place that I'm at isn't all that exciting and it seems a little bit overpriced, then I just won't pay it out of value, but not because I'm upset or disagree with the dual pricing. Now, dual pricing occurs here in Thailand. It's just the way it is. And everybody has a right to their own opinion and basically a right to partake in it or not partake in it. I got certain friends and individuals on one side who will pay for it no matter what, and I have other individuals who absolutely will not pay. Now, I did go to Koh Samet, which is a national preserve island, where they kind of ferry in all their water. There's very little electricity on the island. There's so many pockets that are more remote, more rural, and they pay more. They charge more for foreigners to come onto the island. And it was kind of a unique situation because this was, I think, my second or third year coming to Thailand, and there was foreigners who were coming, and you could kind of tell that they've been around the block a few times, but they found out that they were trying to charge foreigners more, and they started putting up this big stink and getting mad and raising their voice, and they just were arguing about paying it, and they just wouldn't pay it. And then the Thai people running the stand, letting people into the island, weren't going to lower the price, and I believe they just got back on the ferry and went back home. I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but everybody's entitled to their own direction and their own decision making. I was thinking, why didn't they just double check to see if there was a fee before coming onto the island? But that's up to them. And then I have other individuals who just flat out don't pay, and I kind of sit in the middle. If I'm by myself, I kind of pick and choose whether or not to partake in the excursion, depending on the price of it. If I think it's of a good value, then I'll do it. If it's something that doesn't look that interesting, no matter if something doesn't look interesting and it's expensive, I don't go. If something doesn't look that interesting but is fairly inexpensive, even if they're charging more for foreigners, I'll go ahead and do it. Now, to give you a story of something that happened, um, I was working for a company out of Hong Kong. The parent company was out of Hong Kong, but they had a branch here in Thailand. It was listed as a Thai company within that branch, so independently owned here in Thailand. I'm sorry, it wasn't independently owned. It was owned by the parent company, but it was under Thai paperwork, and it was registered as a Thai company. It was run. The manager was Thai, and the manager that I reported to, my boss, was Thai, and most of the employees were Thai. But me being the foreigner, I handled all the expats. I handled all the Americans, all the Europeans, all the UKs, English speaking, Asians that were in from other countries. I did a lot of the marketing and a lot of the sales, and so there was a situation where I had to go up North Country, and the province had reached out to our company to come take a look at their park and their entertainment facilities, and had asked me to go up there and take a look. And so I was sent up there to take a look. Now, I tried to talk to a couple individuals. They weren't aware that I was coming up that day. There was the person who I really needed to talk to wasn't there for some reason. And so I went ahead and paid to go inside, and I did have to pay more than a Thai national. Now, at this time, I was working full time in Thailand. I had the proper documentation, identification, paperwork. And typically, if you're a foreigner and you have the proper paperwork identification, as long as you present that, they're supposed to give you the Thai national rate. Okay, and I know a lot of foreigners and expats that are married to Thai, have Thai spouses. They even have Thai kids. They have kids. They own property. They've been living in Thailand for a long period of time, and they'll go to a park or entertainment facility, and the rule of thumb is the law basically is if you show proper identification, they're not allowed to do the dual pricing, but of course some places still do. So this was one of those situations where I had the proper identification. I even had the paperwork letting them know that I was coming on site to inspect some of the units and take a look at work related issues. This was kind of somewhat of a favor by our company where they had asked us to come up and take a look, and we had agreed to do some of the work for free. Some of the work was going to be done on their behalf. and I think we were providing free labor, but we were, only charging for the materials. And so went up there. I had the proper identification, being a full time resident at the time and a full time employee. I was paying Thai taxes. I was registered properly. I had the work permit. I had everything in line. Went up there, and the gal that I was supposed to, reach out to just happened to not be there that day, and I had to pay the fee to come inside. Now, a couple weeks later, I was back in Bangkok. Excuse me. I was back in Bangkok. I had put in my expense report, and then I got my boss's boss came up to me and said, "Hey, what is this expense for them charging you to go inside the park?" And I explained to them that I had showed them the proper identification, and they still charged me not only to go into the park, but they charged me the foreign rate. And considering that we were doing a lot of this work free of charge, and it was a favor, they were not happy about me being charged, and they were on the phone chewing them out. And I think they ended up resolving the situation, but they let them know that this was not okay. Plus, on top of this, I believe that this place was getting some additional funding from the province, from the city, from the government, and for them to go above and beyond their, they stepped out of bounds by still charging dual pricing for individuals that had proper identification. And so that was the kind of the only time where it became, a kind of a problem or a situation that I was aware of. Most of the time, I just tune it out. I'm kind of in the middle of the road. I'm not upset about it. I'm not unhappy about it. But I'm also not thrilled about it sometimes in the perception of it. It's their country, so I learned to live with it and I deal with it that way. I don't put much thought into it. Most of the time, the prices are minimal at most. There's very few situations where the prices are a little bit tad high, or it's a event or temple or shrine or park or entertainment facility where I think, hey, it's not a very good value and the price is a little tad higher, then I'll go ahead and skip it altogether. It is something that it is what it is, basically. And I do know that with some of the blowback that's been occurring the last several years, I do know that there's been a lot of discussions about them eliminating and getting rid of dual pricing. But the way I look at it too is there is not supposed to be dual pricing, or there's not supposed to be a higher price that they can charge for foreign residents that are considered residents of Thailand who have the proper identification. That still occurs. And so obviously, if that hasn't been eliminated, I have a hard time believing that the dual pricing is going away anytime soon. And so, at least for now, it's kind of there, and it will be there. And so that's a little bit of my insights and my 2 cents worth about the dual pricing. I have no problems with those individuals who don't care about it, and I don't have any qualms about individuals who absolutely won't visit a place where they charge dual pricing. And some people are kind of like where I'm at. We're kind of in the middle where whether or not I have any thoughts on it, I probably have very few little thoughts about it, although I'm in the middle. I just pick and choose where I'll, enter based on actually the entertainment value or what I perceive to be the value for going into a place, right? So it's not really about whether or not the Thais are paying less. I could care less about that, I guess. Although some places do gouge you. So there are places where they either don't charge anything at all, or they charge like 20 baht, and then all of a sudden it's 500 baht or 300 baht for a foreigner, which I think some places are a little bit excessive. They, realize that, hey, we're in the middle of nowhere. We came all the way out there. Now, what are we going to do? Turn around, not partake in it? And so some places I kind of have that notion or the feeling that they're trying to take advantage. But, for the most part, I'm kind of in the middle. And so we have, 3 levels of people with different perceptions on it. And it's dual pricing. It is Thailand. I always tell people, hey, we're guests in the kingdom of Thailand. You can take it or leave it, and there's really I'm not going to try to convince people that they need to be one way or another. One thing great about all of us is we're all our own person. We're all our own individual. I don't think it's one way or another. It's it needs to be a certain way. It is what it is, and I learned to deal with it. And everybody's entitled to their opinion on it, and that is what it is. In terms of the future, I don't know what the future holds. Thailand moves very slowly in their decision making and what processes occur. And I just don't see dual pricing disappearing anytime real soon. If they are getting a little bit of blowback, there's a lot more information about Thailand these days, right? I mean, years ago, people didn't know much about Thailand. It was kind of one of those hidden gems, and now there's just so many people traveling to Thailand, and there has been more blowbacks, whether it's the jet ski scam, or dual pricing, or tricking the tourist into going to gem shops, or or not running the meter in a taxi cab. All those things happen. I kind of have been trying to avoid doing a video on the jet ski scam or them not turning on the meter for taxi cabs. I don't want to sit here and have a channel talking about all the things that I don't like. I mean, I am a guest in the kingdom of Thailand. I love Thailand. It's not going to be like back home, but why would it? I want it to be like back home. I've left and gone on vacation or worked and lived in Thailand to get away from different places and experience new experiences. So that's kind of why I've avoided doing some of these other type of videos that other people do. I just wanted to have a fun little videos and fun channel about some of the experiences I come through. Some of the videos that I'm doing right now, the initial ones, is just because friends who are traveling with me to Thailand once it opens back up have asked me to provide my 2 cents worth, so I've done that. But I try to stay away from videos that are more about not necessarily bashing Thailand, but about the things that we don't like or dislike or kind of troublesome issues. I try to gear toward the enjoyment aspect of Thailand, so I'll kind of hover toward that. But that's a little bit about the dual pricing in Thailand. I don't really want to answer questions about the dual pricing in Thailand. I'll answer questions about quarantine, about buying a condo, renting a place in Thailand. If you have questions about those kind of things, go ahead and do that. Let's just leave that the dual pricing as it is. As it is. If you want additional information, I guess you can just search for it and watch other videos. But that's all I kind of I have that I want to discuss about dual pricing in Thailand. So I'll be back in touch shortly. I'll be covering some new topics and be on the lookout for the new videos. So I'll talk to you guys soon.